welcome to the Hunt Fish Travel podcast. I am super excited to have Jana Waller from Skullbound TV on the line, and we're going to talk about her Alaskan moose hunt. Jana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, we'll get to your show in a little bit, but I'm dying to hear about your Alaskan moose hunt. I really am, because ever since I asked you if you wanted to come on the show, and you were like, well, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, a couple options. Alaskan moose, yes, please. Because I'm pretty sure that's like the dream hunt for most people. Like, tell me how Alaskan moose even came up. Because and correct me if I'm wrong, because you can't even hunt in Alaska without like a guide, right? You can't just like go and get an over-the-counter
No, that's not true at all. You can't. It depends on the style of hunting. You can definitely hunt DIY style, which is what we did for the moose. There are certain hunts you have to have a guide, like grizzly bear hunting or brown bear, depending on where you're at. But no, there are definitely a lot of styles of hunting in Alaska where you do not need a guide and you can go do it yourself, which is what we did. It started with a friend of ours, Ben Willers, wanted to take his daughter, and we've done a lot of hunting before. We had in previous years gone to Alaska, all four of us together, Jim and I and Taylor and Ben, and we did a coastal black bear hunt together when she was 10 years old. And so she, at the time of the moose hunt, was 13. And anyway, I put in for a specific area in Alaska, and we put in as a party and happened to draw it. And so that was the beginning of the moose hunt. And it was definitely one of the most epic hunting experiences we've ever had, just because of the level of difficulty of where it was at. And we had to rent the horses. So we found a wrangler who was willing to let us rent the horses and pack in and drop us off. And that same wrangler was on sort of sat phone, sort of on call, that if we got our mooses down, he would come in with a pack of horses and the pack string and help us take the moose out. So those are things that, you really got to think about logistics when going into the backcountry in a place like Alaska. How much food to pack, making sure you have enough of your good gear, but you don't want to take overboard because we're packing panniers on horses. You want to take enough food, but not overly, and you want to be able to take your food where it's not going to attract bears. And there's a lot of little details go into that style of a hunt. And it was definitely probably one of the most unique experiences that I've ever had.
Interesting. How do you even know, like, how much you should take? Did you find resources online, or did you talk to people?
Well, a lot of it is experience. We do a lot of do-it-yourself hunting here in Montana. Jim and I live, right on the edge of the mountains, and we do our own deer and elk and bear and, those style hunts where we'll even pack in for a couple days. So after you've, had those types of experiences, you kind of know what you eat in a daytime. We really did it simple. Like, there's a lot of different kinds of ways you can pack in food and worry about your meals and your caloric intake when you're doing a lot of hiking and climbing a mountains. We really did it simple. All four of us took mountain houses. And mountain houses are, you can buy them even in Walmart or Sportsman's Warehouse kind of things. They're literally all you do is add water, boiling water. And that water is another thing you got to think about too, though, on that kind of pack-in. Like, you need to be close to, a clean water source, and then take in things with you where you can purify the water. The last thing you want is, cryptosporidium or, giardia in the backcountry.
Oh my God.
So that was actually a big concern of mine. I was filtering that water like nobody.
Because you're from Wisconsin, so you know how awful crypto is. Like,
I do. In fact, I lived in Milwaukee when the entire city of Milwaukee got cryptosporidium. I think that was 1994, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I lived in Milwaukee at the time,
Yep.
and that was, let's just say, I've talked to people who've had giardia from hunting. It sounds very similar, and no fun whatsoever. So you can rest assured I was filtering that water twice Like, I was making sure that I did not get sick. Actually, getting sick was one of my big, like, worries. You know, you can always be, you know, take precautions in getting injured, of course, and trying to be safe. And, you know, when you're dealing with horses and you're dealing with, you know, being in the backcountry where if something were to happen, there was no way to get out quickly. We had a sat phone with us, so we could have always called for some type of rescue, but you know that's not going to happen that fast. But I was more concerned about getting ill and just ruining my trip. But luckily, we all four, you know, were happy and healthy and had a fantastic time. But it was definitely from taking good precautions with our water. But back to the food thing, we did it pretty simple. We all took mountain houses, which they have breakfast, lunch, dinner, all different kinds. I live off of them in the fall, so I knew that I would, you know, and I'm the easiest eater on the planet. Like, there's nothing I don't like. So luckily, that was a piece of cake. And we took snacks and some things like that. And, you know, we're pretty careful with our food. We never did have any bear encounters, which was really nice. But no, it was an adventure. Back to your question of how do you know how much to take? It is sort of a calculated guess. You know, you've got to make sure that you have enough snacks, if you will, throw in your pack, you know, sources of good caloric fat and protein like nuts and I would say jerky. Normally I take jerky on our day hunts a lot, or even if we pack in for a couple of days. I absolutely love jerky. It's so healthy for you. My neighbor makes the most incredible elk and mule deer jerky, but we didn't take any on this trip because I didn't want the smell out there and having to worry about that. But nuts, M&Ms, you know, protein powders to add into your water, that kind of thing is sort of what we lived off of for the week that we were in there. But that and mountain houses, which are really nice and easy in that style of a hunt because they're not going to smell. And then you can literally burn up the pouch when you're done with it, and made it super simple and easy.
That's awesome. So did you fly into Alaska or did you drive?
We flew into Anchorage, and then then we started our trip from there, and ended up driving to a trailhead, meeting up with the horse wrangler, and then taking that pack string in, you know, into the bush, if you will. But no, there's a lot. I've done a lot of float plane trips up into Canada, but the moose hunt was not a float plane trip.
So some guy is just like, here's 6 horses, have fun. Hope you don't kill my animals. You know what I mean?
Actually, he was with us. No,
okay.
That's a really good question. Yeah, don't bring back 7 when I gave you 8.
Right.
No, the wrangler actually rode in with us, and it took about, I don't know, we started out right at daylight and got there late after, you know, got into where we wanted to camp. Probably 10, 12 hours, you know, Alaska. This was in August, so it's like, you know, light out till midnight. But I'd say, if I remember correctly, we got in there late afternoon. You know, it was probably an 8 to 10 hour trail ride, so not that bad. I mean, I've been on longer ones. I've had a little experience. I went to guide school in Wyoming, and it's funny, I definitely in no way, shape, or form a horse expert, but I felt pretty comfortable knowing a little bit about if I needed how to saddle and how to I definitely knew how to pack panniers because that's something really important that you learn in guide school. But it was nice to have the wrangler there as well. And it was funny because I wish we could have filmed the entire ride in, because the horse wrangler got bucked off his horse 3 different times. We were cutting trail. It was almost like it could have been its own reality TV show. But thankfully, let's just say we all got in safely, and, you know, and it worked out well. We actually, it was kind of such a conundrum getting in there, and with the horses were a bit crazy. I had a decent one, and we all had good horses. I don't mean to rip on the horse wrangler, but it was a little chaotic. And so at the end of the trip, I had gotten my moose. Taylor had gotten her moose. We took care of the moose, meaning they were all completely, you know, field dressed in their game bags, hanging up high, you know, try as high as we could get them away from bears. You know, the moose heads were capped, and, you know, the horns were there ready to load. So both moose were ready to load out, but we actually ended up walking out to the trailhead because, first of all, when we sat phoned the horse wrangler, he was not able to come in and get us for 2 or 3 days. And we were, we were well into the hunt. We had already gotten our moose, and Taylor and Ben are really adventuresome, just like Jim and I. Like, they're up for anything. And we're like, we could really walk out of here. It's probably only about 15 miles up over one big mountain. Now, I have to say, Taylor Woolers is by far the toughest little teenager girl I've ever met in my entire life. And it's because of her growing up in a hunting family. Ben is a guide and outfitter here in Montana, and he has literally started her hunting when she couldn't even walk. She was in his backpack hunting mountain lion, so she's very experienced for her age. And I thought for sure she was going to peter out on us halfway through our hike out, and she did great. I wish we could have literally filmed from start to finish. But one of the other concerns you have when you're going in on a hunt like that is battery power for your cameras and cards. And, when we're hiking out, our backpacks are loaded. It was pouring rain. We literally hiked 15 hours. It's not like you want to stop and grab the camera and film every moment, You're just trying to get out, and you're hungry and you're sore and achy. I had a bad knee. Ben had a bad knee. It was a challenge getting out, but it just added to the adventure. But I wish we would have had cameras rolling the whole time, because I think people would kind of really like to see that.
Let me ask you, with the cameras, like, obviously with a TV show that you've had for quite a while, how much do you estimate? Like, how much do you bring per day? Is it a per day estimation? Like, I need 3 32 gigabyte cards and 4 batteries or whatever.
Well, luckily that's Jim's department. I can throw all that at him. We're not a couples show. We don't film each other equally. You do not want me behind the camera if you are really, really wanting to get that hunt on film. I might end up having a good day here and there behind the camera. And if you've watched Skullbound, you do see Jim showing up on the episodes here and there when we are just happen to be in a situation where he's got a tag too, and I'll hop behind the camera. But definitely any kind of techie questions or gear, and that is so Jim's department. He has been doing this for so long. Before we started Skullbound, and we're in our 7th year with Skullbound, he did another show for, I think, 6 years, where he was a director of photography, a cameraman, and editor. And so he's really good. What we did on this particular hunt, because we were concerned about panniard space and weight and charging apparatuses and stuff like that, we literally took one of our smaller cameras as well as our still camera that shoots video. So both are kind of smaller, on the smaller end of the scale for cameras. We obviously took extra batteries. We also took our solar charging panels for the cameras. But that's pretty minimalistic. We didn't take any lighting kits, any flex fills, any of the extras, so to speak. It's pretty bare bones, a bare bones equipment.
This is why I podcast and not have a TV show. It all sounds so complicated and so much to think of. Just the amount of work and the amount of time and effort that you guys put into a single episode just blows my mind. It's so much.
It's funny too, because it's when you're watching a show on Sportsman's Channel, you're watching like 22 and a half or 23 minutes of content. We literally have, from every single episode we film, and it varies depending on the hunt, of course, but we love to film it all. Like on our show, if I see a porcupine while I'm walking to go, look into this valley trying to find a bull, I'm going to film the porcupine, and I'm going to film, stuff that I find interesting and fun and part of the whole just immersing yourself in nature. So we literally will end up with 6 to 10 hours from one episode and have to boil it into telling a story in 23 minutes. It's very, very challenging, especially when your story needs to flow chronologically, but you also want to include the stuff, to me, what hunting is all about. Now, what it means to me might be different what hunting means to somebody else, but I think we've done a fairly good job in the last 6 seasons. We're working on the 7th, so I say 7 years. But in the 6 seasons we've been on the air, hunting to me is about what I just said, immersing yourself in Mother Nature and, the adventure of it all. And, it's not about the trophy at the end. Now, that being said, we all like a big trophy at the end. I'm not, I'm not saying that I don't love a big moose or a big bull or elk, or muley or bear or whatever it may be. But that's not the end goal for me. It is a lot for a lot of other TV shows. It totally is, and that's fine. But it's hard for us to, yes, we want to show the hunt and we want to show the kill shot and we want to show the celebration and all that. But more importantly to me, it's the journey, and it's what you experience along the way, trials and tribulations. It's pushing yourself through bad weather, or, mile 15 is about to, your knees are going to give out, or whatever. Maybe it's showing that passion for being out there. And it can be pretty tough to tell that in short story format. And what's even funnier is, with things going online so much, what does really well on our website, we just launched a new website, and it's got some video clips up there. It's going to get more and more as the weeks go on, but people really like that under 1 minute content. And, and I'm the same way. When I'm sitting on the couch late at night and perusing through social media, I like short video clips. I like to see funny encounters or cool wildlife or whatever. And so that's something that we've definitely changed in the last couple of years of how we do our show and how we film, is capturing those short moments and trying to work them into the show. But if they don't work into the show, they're going to be on our website or they're going to be on our social media. So,
that's a really great way to kind of repurpose some content that, like you said, if you can't get it into that 22 minutes, but it's a really good clip and people would very much enjoy it. Putting it on your website is brilliant. Let me ask you, so the outdoor industry, the hunting industry is pretty small compared to other industries, finance or travel or whatever it is. And I know you're not going to make a gazillion dollars having a TV show on Sportsman's Channel. Let's be realistic here, people listening. You don't get rich in the hunting industry. So what keeps you going year after year? What is your payoff for doing the show?
Well, I think I come from a little bit different perspective than a lot of people in the hunting industry, in the fact that, let's just face it, I'm old. I have been, and I'm proud of where I am. I wouldn't go backwards for anything. I'm proud to say I'm 45 years old, and I've already done my time. I worked in outside sales. I worked in the investment industry, for 15, almost 20 years. And so this is sort of my second career, so to speak, which I never really I wouldn't say it happened. A lot of hard work went into it. I was an outdoor writer for years before we came up with the concept of Skullbound TV. I used to write a lot for hunting magazines, and womenhunters.com was one of the first websites out there for women hunting. And, when I was really getting into hunting is when I was 19, I grew up bird hunting with my dad. We pheasant hunted, duck hunted, and loved being outside. And, my dad really wanted a boy, and I was the second girl, so he sort of turned me into one, if you would. But I love it. I love him for it. Always fishing and sitting in the duck blind or going and looking for pheasants or helping train the dogs or whatever it was. That was my youth and what I remember as my fondest memories. But it wasn't until I was a freshman in college that I actually met another female who was a bow hunter. Now, mind you, this was 26 years ago, and there really weren't a lot of women into archery or into bow hunting. There was Brenda Valentine, the first lady of hunting, she is absolutely a pioneer in my eyes. And later on, then of course you had the Tiffanys and, other women which do such a tremendous job of encouraging other ladies, because that's all it really takes. I remember the day of meeting this other gal. I don't even know her name. And I remember talking with her, and I remember going, you bow hunt? And she's like, yeah, I got a doe last weekend. And I remember asking her, well, I go out and sit with my dad. My dad had just picked up archery a couple of years before that. And I remember talking with her about it and saying, well, I go sit with my dad in the trees, or my high school boyfriend in the trees, but I can't pull their bows back. And she's like, well, you have to get a bow that's tuned down for you, and you build your arms up. I literally didn't even know that. I didn't know that, that bows were, unlike a gun, bows were tailored to you. And it was that moment of, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And I literally that week went to the bow shop outside Milwaukee, Buck Rub, I think it was called. This was, mind you, 26 years ago.
Still there.
So, is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it wasn't. Okay. You know where it is now, off the interstate, right? It
Yes.
used to be in the upstairs building, like in this like 4-store building way upstairs, little itty bitty shop. It's really come a long way. It's kind of cute to go drive by it and see that, you know, all the archery targets outside, and there's a big shop now. But anyway, walked into there. They set me up with my very first Darton Jr. was my bow, and I got a doe that I think the next year I got a doe and was absolutely hooked. Oh, and that same year that I was buying my bow and shooting and getting to learn archery, my dad shot his very first buck. I went to college only 10, 15 minutes from where my parents lived. He called me up and he said, I shot a buck last evening. I trailed it as far as I could. I lost the trail. Do you want to go out in the morning with me and help me look? I'm like, absolutely. So I skipped class, which I don't recommend everybody listening out there. I skipped class and went with my dad. And long story short, we found that buck in a cornfield, and I had never seen my dad more elated. Like, he was so excited, and it just fueled my fire of like, I want to feel that. I want to get into this and have that kind of emotion and connection. And so anyway, that was a long time ago, and man, things have really come a long way. So as far as the industry goes, I have a public relations degree with a health minor, but you know, I like I said, basically worked sales and the investment industry for most of my adult life, and just loved to hunt, and never really thought about it except wanting to get into it on the writer's side because it was just another way to connect with other hunters. Well, then Animal Planet, this is kind of a funny story, Animal Planet, of all networks, contacted me when I was living in Wisconsin. This was 8 or 9 years ago, and they wanted to do a pilot about women who hunt and sustainable living, from gardening to hunting kind of thing. And long story short, they came out, filmed a pilot. The pilot never went anywhere, like a lot of pilots on mainstream TV. But at the same time, I had met Jim, and we were kind of long-distance dating from Montana to Wisconsin. He had thought of the idea of, there's hardly any solo female-hosted shows. Why don't we do our own show and tie in your skull business, which I had been doing for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before that, just for fun and friends. And I was in one little art gallery of painting and these European mounted skulls, bears and deer and stuff like that. So anyway, we came up with the idea of Skullbound and literally put a pilot together in the course of a year, went and shopped it around at SHOT Show, and the rest is history. I mean, that was literally 7 or 8 years ago. But no, I never really thought about, you know, nowadays I meet a lot of young girls who are in college or just getting out of high school and really wanting to get into the hunting industry, and what direction do I go and how do I start? And that wasn't even a possibility when I was out of college. I mean, they didn't even have they didn't even have the internet when I was in college. I'm really dating myself now, but it's true. It's just really, really come far. And now with social media, I mean, if you want to get into the hunting industry, there are so many different avenues you can take. You can go into the marketing side of things with social media. You can get into TV. You can get into writing. You can work for companies. Like, I mean, I literally have the most amazing companies that I work with. Everything from Matthews Archery to Nosler Ammo and Guns. I mean, I work with a lot of them that are really diverse in the hunting industry. And I would literally, if I was not doing Skullbound TV, I would go work for some of the companies that I work for right now, like Cryptek, for example. My camouflage company that I represent, it is filled with some of the most incredible people I've ever met. I mean, we're talking heroes of this nation. You know, it was founded by Butch and Josh, both Apache helicopter pilots. They collectively, I think, have 23 years military service. And, you know, they've become really good friends of ours. And that's a company that if I weren't doing Skullbound, I would absolutely go work for.
Yep, they came on as a sponsor of the HuntFishTravel last fall.
Nice.
And I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
The pattern, every time I wear it, I get compliments constantly. They're like, oh, that looks really cool. And then the patterns show up randomly, like on people's hats and like all over the place. It's really cool.
Yeah, they've really gotten they've really done a good job of getting on the licensing side of things. You'll see, they have their own gear, of course, on cryptech.com, but then you'll see a lot of other companies using their patterns now on everything from, I've seen it on Mountain Dew cases, to video games where you get to select, what's that big video? I'm not a gamer, but there's a big video game out there, one of the biggest out there, where you get to a certain level and you can choose cryptech as your kit to wear. But it's really, there's another thing that has completely changed from when I was 19 years old to now, is gear for women. A lot of these companies are realizing that, they can be very successful in targeting the female hunters, and we're only getting stronger and stronger every year. The demographics show that women purchasing hunting licenses is on the rise every year, whereas men's are falling off. Our older generations of men in their 70s and 80s and even 90s, those hunters are falling off. And unfortunately, dying or getting too old to really get out there. And women are the ones who are replacing those numbers within the industry. And companies are seeing that and really starting to target awesome products for women. And it's a fun time to be a woman in this industry.
Side note, the game is Call of Duty that you were thinking of. Call of Duty, you can actually wear cryptic camo. Yep, totally. I'm a big COD fan. I'm a nerd. So, yay for video games and awesome camo.
Exactly.
So how do you handle the companies? Because while there are a lot of companies that do embrace women in the outdoors, there's a lot that don't. I don't know how many have turned up their noses, or it's so hard to even get them on the phone because they don't take you seriously. How do you handle those companies?
Well, to be completely honest, I really haven't dealt with that a lot. Partly, I think, is because of my age, because and it's funny, I look at it as a complete bonus. Being an older woman who, has had a couple of decades worth of hunting, who kind of can walk the walk and talk the talk, if you will. What I've heard from most of my sponsors and even people that I've just been talking with in like at the SHOT Show or ATA or something, is a lot of companies, they don't want that young cutesy girl,
nobody takes serious.
Right, who doesn't have the experience, or who doesn't have the knowledge to carry on good, solid conversations with people asking about the product or asking about the hunting situation. And so for me, I really haven't dealt with that. I haven't really dealt with companies not wanting to jump on board the women in the outdoors bandwagon. My biggest thing, which I've really had to learn to deal with, being in sort of in the spotlight, if you will, my biggest complaint isn't companies, because I've just been really blessed in that category. My thing is, I didn't know when I started this how to deal with the anti-hunters. That was the most eye-opening thing to me. I've never really had doors shut in my face. Now, I've definitely had no's in the beginning because, maybe people's budgets aren't there, or they don't have, they already work with XYZ people and they don't have room to work with more. And that, you shouldn't take things like that personally. There's a lot of companies out there that, have smaller marketing budgets and they simply can't even give away free product, and maybe they could give you a discount, but I've never taken that personally. You just, keep putting your foot in front of the other and knocking on other doors and building that resume. It really helped that I had been an outdoor writer, because that kind of opened up some doors for me. And that's one of the things I always tell younger women who are really wanting to get in the hunting industry and build that resume. And my first thing is build a classy social media platform. I know for a fact, while there may be a few companies out there that are different, my sponsors do not want anything that's less than classy. They don't want the girl in her bikini in her backyard pulling her bow. They don't want, 6 inches of cleavage hanging out while you're posting product pictures. They don't want that. And not to say that you can't still be beautiful and classy, with your products, but they really they really don't want anything to do with that sexism selling their products, which is kind of nice. I mean, I actually think that that's smart. Now, there's maybe other companies that would want that, and that's fine too, but especially in maybe the tactical world or the 2A world. their marketing strategies are a little bit different than a lot of the hunting industry, so to speak. But I haven't really dealt with a lot of negativity on that front. The negativity I had to really get used to, and now it's kind of comical, but trust me when I say it wasn't in the beginning, is dealing with death threats and dealing with people coming onto your social media and flat out calling you the worst horrific names under the sun. And, it's become old school and it's nothing new to people. But when I started, I'm a techie idiot anyway. Like, I've never been like, I had to basically get my arm twisted to start Facebook years back. I think I started Skullbound Facebook page and even my own Facebook the same time, like 7.5 years ago. So I've never been real social media savvy until Skullbound came along, but it's been the only really solid short advice I can give to other women and men who might be experiencing really negative backlash is do not argue, do not even engage in conversation. Simply ban that person on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and go back and erase their comments. That's the only way to do it. And unfortunately, I learned the hard way. There were years ago, I was getting harassed by this guy out of Oklahoma, and I didn't understand that he posed as a hunter saying he had a problem with one of my photos. Well, that started an engagement back and forth, and I should have known better because he was coming in under the guise of, I'm an old school hunter and I think you're unethical kind of thing. Now that to me is a very big insult. And because I try to be reverent and ethical and moral and brand hunting because it's so important to me. I want to pass it on to the other generations. I want people to realize that hunters are animal lovers. So my image is really important in the field photos I post. So that's how we started the conversation. And it only went further into that. And then the name calling started and the murderer. And I'm like, oh, this guy. But I wasn't smart enough just to ban and delete him. I kept arguing my point and ended up, long story short, having to hire an attorney to send him a cease and desist letter because he was literally ruining my days. He was going to sponsors. And the funny thing is I wasn't aware that all my other sponsors were already aware of this type of rhetoric, and they were like not even worried about it. They're like, just ban and get rid of him. This was 5 years ago, I think. But anyway, my advice to people on social media is if you're getting that type of anti-hunting harassment, simply block, ban, and delete, and only engage in conversation if someone has a legitimate question like, I thought mountain lions were endangered. Well, no, they're not endangered. In fact, they're 33% above the, population for this area that's going to, a healthy, sustainable population. That kind of conversation. But, just don't even get involved with someone who's going to bash and be negative.
That is excellent advice. I might have, it's really easy to get in and you want to prove your point and, and those anti-hunters are sneaky. They're sneaky.
They are sneaky. And, I wasn't on Facebook, for example, if someone friend requested me and had a picture of themselves in camo or a picture of a bow or a gun, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I didn't really screen people. And so it's taken years of banning and deleting and weeding them out. And they still come on once in a while, but it's so much less than it ever was before because I don't get involved in the negativity and I ban, delete. If someone, Jim and I run our own company, Skullbound, ourselves. We do all of our own marketing, all of our own sales, all of our own social media. It's just us. So I read every comment and everything that comes in. And it's just so much easier if someone's being negative towards me or anybody else I'm affiliated with, I'm just going to ban, delete, and move on.
And I can imagine because you're not afraid to post a lot of the bloodier pictures. And, there's that photo that I'm sure has been downloaded and reposted a million times of you in the stream with the, where you're washing the blood off
Moose
hands.
On my back.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's fabulous because it's real life.
It's funny because that picture, that picture was a Tenzing photo shoot showing how great their backpacks are, which they are absolutely incredible. And that was a real moose. That was a moose that someone in Wyoming had gotten 3 days before that we used for that photo shoot. And I've been nothing but clear about that. Well, that picture is first of all, epic. Lee Chouse is the photographer, and he's absolutely amazing. Any of the really amazing pictures most of the amazing pictures you've seen out there of the Shockies and Cameron Haynes, and they've been done by Lee and his crew. And anyway, in fact, I've got 2 of them blown up huge here sitting in my living room because he's just so epic. But yes, that got a lot of talk and a lot of, first of all, out comes every keyboard cowboy under the sun. You're going to get Giardia drinking that water. Well, it was a photo shoot, and I know better, and I didn't really drink it. I was flashing it up on my face and acting like it's a photo shoot. It's a photo shoot, right? Every single hunting industry company has done it. And then the funny thing is, there's no way that moose is real. That girl couldn't lift that moose. La 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 la. Over and over and over. And you want to fight back. Like, I'm a fighter, right? I'm a right fighter, and I don't like to fight, but when I do, I'll get in there with my cannon and fire away, right? But you're always going to have that. If you are in the hunting industry or you do a lot of social media, you're going to have people out there who want to bring you down, who want to attack, and that's okay. The next year later, I got my moose. You saw that moose on a DIY hunt in Alaska, processed it ourselves. I've got beautiful photos. They're not as bloody, but beautiful photos of that moose on my back, my moose, same weight, so I could come back and go into this whole rhetoric about that for someone who's ripping on me. But I just think it's important that no matter what, to just don't let the negativity get to you, because I see it all the time. I don't see it on our stuff all that much, but I see other people creating division in this hunting industry where I would never have let my kid shoot that dink buck, for example. I see that a lot. And I'm like, are you kidding me? In my opinion, letting a kid shoot a monster whitetail for his first deer is actually worse than having a kid shoot a spike buck. You're giving him the wrong message.
Yeah. You're totally setting him up for failure going forward.
Yeah, exactly. I certainly am not going to put that on anybody's photos, though. I think it's important to remember that there's a human being behind every photo. There's somebody with feelings and emotions. And, I just think it's important that even if you disagree, you can disagree, but, you don't have to post it. We all need to band together because we're a lot stronger together. The one thing, too, that has really shocked me in getting into the hunting industry is the forces that are going on behind the scenes trying to stop hunting. And I'm really lucky. I work with the Sportsman's Alliance. I work with the National Wild Turkey Federation. I work with the Mule Deer Foundation. I mean, companies who this is what they do. They are in the conservation business. They are in the hunting industry, and they want to desperately protect our herds, our flocks, and our heritage. And I've really, through these companies, have begun to understand the forces that be going on behind the scenes, all the court cases every single week that are being instated to try to chip away at our hunting rights. And what I really think it's important for everybody to realize is that we need to band together. We are much stronger unified than we are separated. And the way we get separated is when you have elitists in the group who think one style of hunting is better than the other, or one area is, I don't bird hunt, I only big game, whatever it is. The elitist attitude, I think, is detrimental to our hunting heritage. And I also think being negative and not banding together. And I really think that I see it. If you can just page through social media, you could see some of the negativity coming out in people. And I just think it's important to not get wrapped up in that, to stay positive, stay strong, be encouraging, and just try to get involved on all levels. Like, I have a lot of people asking me, like, because I do a lot of work with the conservation groups and my skull business and tying them in together. A lot of people asking me, like, how do I give back? What's an easy way? I don't have a lot of time, or I don't have a lot of money. Well, there are definitely simple ways to give back to protect what we all love. And that's, become a member. Most of them are $35 a year to become a member of, like, NWTF or Mule Deer Foundation. And you can literally, I belong right now to 7 conservation groups. I'm a lifetime member of 3 of them. You can literally join 9 or 10 conservation groups a year for less than $1 a day. And those membership dues do a lot of work. They really do. And you'll get good magazines out of it. And inside the magazines or your online magazine, it's going to tell you little ways that you can get involved in your community or your chapter. Or, I think it's really important that not only we appreciate this hunting heritage that we have, but we ourselves, individuals, give back to protecting it.
That's a good point. Very, very, very good point. Let's circle back a little bit back to your Alaskan moose hunt. So you went in with the horses.
Yep.
And tell me about the hunt itself. Tell me about the day you got your moose.
Oh, sure. Well, we got in the horses. We set up camp. Now, mind you, where we were in the area we pitched our tents on the highest point possible. Once you got in there, it was really obvious of where you should set up camp because you need to strategically be able to cover as much ground as possible. So we chose obviously the highest point, set up our campsite, figured how close we were to water, and then just started glassing. And that very first evening, we glassed up 4 or 5 different bowls. I mean, this is just moose heaven where we were. And it was a really unique drainage where three or four sort of canyons merged together with a river on the bottom. And just glass. Went to bed so super excited, could hardly barely sleep. Got up really super early the next morning, had a little bit of breakfast, made our coffee. Believe me, I packed in coffee. And started glassing. And all 4 of us sat down together the first morning, and we were glassing where we had seen these 2 bulls the night before. And sure enough, we did see 2 of them. And they were kind of in the same area, just a little bit further down in the valley. And we kind of made our way down the mountainside, and we're trying to get within range because one of the bulls looked really nice. And got within range. The bull it's actually on the show. It was really funny. He was running around, and there was a cow with him, and, it was just the start of the rut, and he was acting all, he was displaying his horns and rubbing them and dancing and jumping around. I mean, I've never even seen moose act like that. It was really, really cool. But he, at one point, ducked back into the timber, and we never saw him again. Well, we just all decided, to glass up and try to find something else to go after and make a play. And Jim had actually spotted my bull, about a mile away. Literally, it was way far down in the valley, but it was a big open meadow. And he saw this bull bed down. And it was hard. I didn't realize how big he truly was because we were so far away, but I knew that we needed to get a closer look at this bull. And going down through the base of the mountain, though, to get onto the meadow bottom, it's super, super thick. You make tons of noise. So Taylor and Ben stayed up on the hillside, and Jim and I dropped off. And, it literally took us an hour just to get down mountainside to the valley floor and through the thicket. And by the time we sort of made our way to the edge of the meadow, I popped around the corner and kind of looked into the meadow, and there's a cow staring at me like 80 yards away. And we quick duck back down, and, I motioned to Jim, there cow's right there. Cow's right there. I think we're busted. And gave it a couple minutes and ended up slowly standing up and peering over there. And sure enough, no bull, no cow. They were gone. We busted them out. And we're like, well, it's opening day. That's no big deal. So we made our way kind of on the edge of the meadow. We sat down, and Jim's the one who said, let's just do a sequence of calling and see what happens. And I'm got my pack off, and I'm actually, I can't remember if I was putting on my rain gear or taking it off. It's Alaska. Your rain gear goes on like every 10 minutes, right? So, but when you're hiking in it, it gets kind of hot. So I think I was taking off my rain jacket, digging around in my backpack. Jim had literally set the GoPro up in front of us, facing me. So all that you see on that particular episode, which you can watch on My Outdoor TV, what you can see of my face is all live on the fly. I'm digging around in my backpack, and he goes, don't move. And he's kind of hitting me with his arm, and he goes, big bull. And I'm like, I didn't know where to look. I couldn't move my head to look and see where he was looking, and which I eventually just did. And across the meadow from us, I literally see this monster moose. Just his horns just kind of, milling around, slowly moving a little bit. So moose have bad eyesight. And luckily, I was able to move and get into situation and get my gun up on the bipod and get all ready. And we have that bull moose on film for 8 minutes. Now, mind you, you're not going to see 8 minutes in the show because, like I said, it's a 23-minute episode and you got to tell a big story. We have 8 minutes raking a tree, right in front of us. And I had no shot, and it was awesome to watch. But I'm the kind of hunter that it's almost good if I don't have a whole lot of time because, you just get so adrenaline filled and then, your heart's racing and it was so exciting. Well, finally, this big bull kind of walked away from the tree that he's rubbing and goes broadside. And I put that first shot on him, and I knew that first shot was a done deal. I had my Nosler 300, and he runs a couple steps and just stands there. And I put he's quartering away. I put another shot on him, and we literally just watch him tip over like a big tree. And I just couldn't compose myself. I mean, I literally start crying. You can see it on the episode. And I'm just in awe of this magnificent animal. The fact that I was able to be on this hunt and that, it's kind of like everything coming to fruition. Like you had mentioned earlier, all the hard work that goes into that style of hunt, of everything from arranging your gear to the anticipation of the hunt and planning out your food and, all the arrangements of the wrangler, all that. It's like, wow, that just happened. And when I walked up to that bull, I could barely even lift its head up. It was just so, I couldn't even find the words. I find it hard to believe now. It was literally one of the most amazing hunting moments of my life. And to be in there with Jimmy and, it took a while. So Taylor and Ben heard the shot and they made it back down to the bull probably 45 minutes later, maybe an hour later. And, all hugs all around. And, we just took tons of photos and celebrated in that moment. But then, as you know, the real work begins, like every single show says, but it's true. It really does. And when you are dealing with a moose of that magnitude, that's a lot of work. And it's a lot, and it's not just a simple quartering, packing out thing. You've got to get every single ounce of meat off that carcass. And it's Alaska. They're very serious about that kind of thing, which I love. I think being wasteful is a shame. And so we took care of that moose and got it all wrapped up in the game bags and hung up high. Obviously took the rest of the day, but it was epic. It was on the first day of the hunt. And he's, I don't have him on my wall yet, but he's going on my wall in my living room so I can think about it every single day.
Awesome. What an exciting hunt. Man.
It really was. It was truly epic. I'd like to go back now with a bow.
Yeah.
I thought about taking my bow in as well, and maybe if I had done a float fly-in trip where we could take a little bit more gear, I might have done a bow and gun and taken both weapons. And it was just hard. We were limited on gear. I was with Taylor. We both decided to take one rifle in with us. So she used my gun. And, I'm glad that it worked out like that. But that's definitely on my bucket list, is to head back and get a moose with my Matthews.
That's awesome. Very, 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 very cool. Oh, so
Thank you.
Cool. So cool.
I appreciate that.
Well, Jana.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that story. And thank you for talking so candidly about the outdoor industry and being a woman. And you're only 4 years older than me, so I'm right there with your girlfriend. So I ain't trying to compete with the 22-year-olds, trust me.
Hey, 40s rock.
Why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you on social media and where they can watch your show?
Sure. They can currently watch us right now. We always air quarter 1-2 on the Sportsman's Channel. And this week is our best of episode. It's episode number 13. And so now if people join in on Sportsman's Channel, and you have to look at whatever, whether you have cable or direct or dish, and to find the channel. We have DirecTV at 605. But we will start now re-airing those 13 episodes. So there's time enough to see all of season 6 if you have the Sportsman's Channel. If not, you can watch all of seasons 1 through 5 on myoutdoortv.com or motv.com. It is a subscriber-based online hunting network. But if you use this code Skullbound, the first month's 99 cents. All the episodes are downloadable, so you can watch them whenever you want, wherever you want. Hey, it's turkey season. When you're sitting in the turkey blind with your kids, might as well be watching some Skullbound. And and then, and it's exciting to be able to be online as well. This is kind of new platform for Outdoor and Sportsman's Channel to be on My Outdoor TV. But if people want to go to our website, it's just skullboundtv.com. We've got a lot of fun video clips in the video section. We're going to be uploading more and more as the weeks come. It's a fairly new website. And then, of course, on social media, we're under Skullbound TV as well. We have a Facebook page that's very active. I keep it active every day, as well as Instagram. I'm on Twitter too, but I don't post as much on Twitter as I do on Instagram and Facebook. But that's where you can find us.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you very, very much for taking the time to come on. I appreciate it, knowing how busy you are. And
I really appreciate you spreading the word and passing on our passion. And let me know. I'll be happy to come back and we'll talk about anything else you'd like to talk about.
I will take you up on that, because anybody else who understands the crypto-Spiridian reference is okay.
I'm with you, girl. I got it. I'll tell you what's really funny. Speaking of that, there are so many great water filtering systems out there now, and I don't even have one as a sponsor. I need to, because I'm the queen of promoting that because of cryptosporidium.
Right? Like, so I do this I do this other podcast, The Farmer and the City Girl, right? And it's like just conversations about food and stuff. And we did this episode about cover crops and why like keeping cow poop away from your water sources is so important. Yeah. And I was like, let me tell you about crypto. And he had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm like, everyone in Wisconsin understands what I'm referring to. Everyone.
Yeah. Totally.
It's
and
awful.
The funny thing is I remember the day where I'm like, I don't feel really good. I think I'm getting an upset stomach. And sure enough, my boyfriend at the time was like, oh, you need to suck on ice. Well, that's like making it twice as worse. Yeah, little did they know that you do not need to drink your water. The whole two things you're supposed to do when you don't feel good, suck on ice and drink water, are not good. Not good when you're dealing with contaminated cryptosporidium water.
So funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So funny.